Hello and welcome to Eastern Horizon. This is Malik Ayub Sumbul live from Beijing. We are live streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and X. Donald Trump's proposal for the deployment of the international stabilization troops in Gaza is facing a major setback, and now there is more and more opposition from the many countries who actually accepted this proposal, and they set their consent to send the troops. Initially, the United States have requested more than 70 countries to send the troops in Gaza. But now we see that many countries are showing the reluctance. To discuss this, I have joined a very distinguished panel right now. I have joined Dr. Mustafa Barghouti, who is the member of the Palestinian Legislative Council from Ramallah. I have joined another distinguished guest from Israel, Gideon Levy, who is a senior analyst and Haaretz columnist based in Tel Aviv, Israel. And from Indonesia, I have joined Dr. Suzie Sudarman. She is associate principal of the Indonesian Institute of Advanced Studies in Jakarta. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. So let me go directly to Dr. Mustafa Barghouti. That how you see this proposal that Donald Trump presented, and now we see that major countries they are showing the reluctance. Do you think that this proposal was any practical and based on some practical and pragmatic terms and condition, or on basis?
Well, what President Trump presented was called the peace plan. And it actually lacked the elements of a plan, and lacked also the elements of having real peace, because it didn't say a single word about ending Israeli occupation. Nevertheless, I think this whole idea of stabilization force, which is part of this plan, is still something that is not agreed upon. From our perspective as Palestinians and many Arab countries, including the main Arab mediators, which are Qatar and Egypt, but also the opinion of Turkey and many other Muslim countries, is that the stabilization force should be a peacekeeping force, not an executive force that would go into fighting Palestinians. Peacekeeping force means that they would stand between the Palestinians and the Israeli side, and that they would enter the area that Israel is still occupying, which is almost 55 or 56% of Gaza, so that the Israeli army would leave Gaza and conduct its withdrawal. I think the hesitation on the side of many countries about to participate or not participate is mainly related to the lack of clarity about what would be the role and the power, the work that this stabilization force will do. We need, as I said, a peacekeeping force that would maintain and observe the continuation of the ceasefire, which has been already violated by Israel 770 times, which led to the death of no less than 412 Palestinians and the injury of more than 1,115 people.
So let me go to Gideon Levy. How you see that recently Israel has approved 19 new settlements in occupied West Bank. So how you see that this proposal and the continuous occupation of Israel, how you would like to comment?
It's part of the war for the settlers and for the government. The war in Gaza was not just a need, it was also a great opportunity to deepen the occupation in the West Bank. It's not only about Gaza. And they took advantage of this opportunity as much as they can, and even more so. The West Bank of today, and Dr. Barghouti knows it much better than I, the West Bank of today is looking totally different than the West Bank of 2023. It has 900 checkpoints. It has over 100 new settlements. But it's not only about the settlements. It's about the lands which were confiscated, tens of thousands of dunams, hundreds of thousands of dunams, which those violent settlers confiscated in a violent way, while there is no government, army, or police to stop them. On the contrary, the police and especially the army is collaborating with them and many times even pushing them to do all those things. So what is happening in the West Bank is part of what is happening in Gaza. In both, there is no ceasefire, by all means not. For Israel, this ceasefire is only a masquerade in order to make the world forget about Gaza, and this is happening, unfortunately. And many things which are happening now in the West Bank are irreversible.
So let me go to Dr. Suzie Sudarman. Indonesia has promised, that the president, Prabowo Subianto, he has said that, it's also in the media that the Indonesia is willing to send 20,000 troops. So how you think that it sounds in Indonesia, being a Muslim country?
I think it's unlucky for Indonesia to have someone who suffered from a stroke as president, and he is the good friend of King Abdullah, and King Abdullah would rather have Indonesian die in Gaza rather than his troops. And then also we are facing a budget deficit. So the easy way for Indonesian is to think that by befriending Israelis, they get money. They get easy money to supplement the budgetary woes that Indonesia is facing. So what is happening is actually not something that we agree upon or been discussed formally, but it's a fiat from a president who has totally ruled by totalitarian means. People are incarcerated. We cannot even say anything about what's happening in the country. And the country is facing budget woes, and that Prabowo needs to overcome this by befriending the Rothschild, the Zionists, and all that. And this is a worrisome thing for regular folks.
So, Dr. Mustafa, let's suppose, for instance, that we suppose that there is a deployment of this international stabilization forces there. So, how much risk is this that there could be a direct clash in forceful disarmament of Hamas? How you see this?
Well, I think what Gideon said about West Bank is absolutely right, because what we are talking about here is a war that didn't stop. There was a declaration of ceasefire, but the war continues in Gaza, and the war continues and even is escalating in the West Bank. Now, regarding these troops and the whole idea of the force, first of all, nobody is sure that Israel would allow that to happen. I think Israel doesn't, Netanyahu in particular, and his fascist government don't want to move into the second stage at all. They want to keep the war going on. They want to keep the occupation of Gaza. Some of them are even speaking now about building settlements in Gaza. And they want to reactivate the full-scale war with Lebanon and maybe with Iran. You're talking about a fascist government that is ready to do anything, killing people, destroying countries, conducting wars, just to guarantee that it stays in power and continues its ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians and the settler colonial project, whether in the West Bank or Gaza. Now, I want to also alert you, while Israel keeps talking about disarming Hamas and disarming Gaza, we just received information that Israel is already providing heavy military equipment and weapons to the collaborators groups, gangs of collaborators that Israel has created in Gaza, with the hope that they will go into a civil war with other Palestinians. That's the level of how dangerous the Israeli policy is. So what we need, yes, we want a force, but a peacekeeping force, a force that would guarantee ceasefire, and a force that would push the Israeli army out of Gaza. If that is not the case, then this force will not function, in my opinion, because nobody wants to be seen as sending troops to fight Palestinians.
So, Gideon, how you see that this proposal of the international stabilization forces deployment? I mean, that what is the Israel narrative, and how you see while sitting in Israel that how this narrative sounds, especially towards the people of Israel?
The Israeli narrative is exactly as Dr. Barghouti just described it, namely to continue the war. This is from the very beginning Netanyahu's policy. He had to pay some lip service because Donald Trump came with his plan, and even to stop some of the fightings and the killings. But he continues as if nothing until Donald Trump will stop this, and it doesn't seem that Donald Trump has too much interest in stopping what's going on. For Israel, on one hand, the war is over because Israel is not bombed anymore, and there are no rockets or missiles falling in Israel. So from any Israeli point of view, the war is over. And nobody cares that 1 hour away from our homes, the war is at its, I don't want to say at its peak, but Israel is doing things. Israel, for example, continues to demolish buildings in Gaza, even though there is ceasefire. Israel is killing hundreds of people, as Dr. Barghouti mentioned. Israelis couldn't care less about it because, unfortunately, the media, together with the mainstream view in Israel, stopped caring about Gaza, stopped caring about any Palestinian life, stopped caring about humanity or international law. It's all about continuing to take revenge over the 7th of October.
So my follow-up question to you again, that mean that Dr. Mustafa also mentioned that Israel want to extend the war canvas to Lebanon and even to Israel and even to Iran, and even we heard that weeks before Iran again last week Iran again gave some hints that there could be another large-scale war. So in that case, how you see that the worst case scenario, where the things will heading then?
Are you asking me? Sorry.
Yes, the same question.
So
I
please,
just asked the
so please repeat it. I thought you directed to our colleague. Sorry.
No, I repeat my question that Dr.
Yes.
Mustafa also just mentioned that there are mean chances that Israel want to extend the war even to Lebanon and to Iran.
Yes.
And even Iran also have mentioned this week that there are some hints that there could be another war with Israel. So
Yes.
in that case, what is the worst case scenario? That where the things will go in the Middle East?
Netanyahu, the last thing he wants now is any kinds of silence. It's a year of elections in Israel, which is going to start in 1 week. 2026 is a year of elections. It's a year in which he's still continuing his trial. It's a year in which many of new corruptions are being revealed by the media. And the only way to get out of all this is declaring war in any possible place. And unfortunately, the Israelis will accept it. There's never an opposition against war in Israel. Oppositions are only against any chance of peace. There was no war in which, at least in the beginning, Israelis refused, in masses, to take part. So in other words, he will find wherever it is possible to heat it up, he will heat it up and fire it. He tries in all the fronts, Lebanon, Syria, Iran, you just mentioned it, and obviously Gaza. Hopefully he will not succeed in none of them, and hopefully Donald Trump will put an end to this very, very dangerous and explosive game of Netanyahu.
So, Dr. Suzie, let me come to you. And my question is that Indonesia is a country where there is a lot of anti-Israel sentiments because in many countries who don't have the diplomatic relations with Israel, it's very hard to get the public support. So in current scenario, 20,000 troops, how you see mean that the public support and what kind of the reaction the government could face?
Well, the government has been smart enough to do tricks, propaganda tricks. There are demonstrations for Palestinian entity, and then the foreign minister would say, Prabowo is with Palestinian freedom, independence. And so the people are easily guiled by all these tricks because Indonesian by culture is very permissive. It's not a critical society with enough education to understand what's going on. So they play with all kinds of things just because Prabowo wants to be close to the Jordanians and then get money from the Zionists and all that and all that. Everybody only thinks about the Israelis as the source of money to balance the Indonesian dependence on China. So this is a problem, a cultural problem that had to be revoked if everybody wakes up. But the waking up is difficult because they're not critical enough.
So, Dr. Mustafa, let me ask you a question that mean that how you see, especially the Muslim countries, that immediately there is an atmosphere. Those countries who don't have the diplomatic ties. So, what is pushing them actually that they are going to send the troops and then making a public narrative to have some sort of the soft attitude towards Israel or to set up some formal relation? How you see this?
Well, clearly, who is pushing them? It's the United States of America, which is working on behalf of Israel most of the time. And they are, many countries don't want to upset President Trump and are ready to fulfill what he wishes for. But in the case of the Arab and Muslim countries, and we're talking here about a huge power actually, unfortunately, their solidarity with Palestine is insufficient. And they have power, and we've seen that power when they met with President Trump and pushed for the ceasefire. I think then he had to respect the pressure he was subjected to. The problem is that these Arab and Muslim countries do not exercise sufficient pressure on the United States and do not lobby the United States as Israel is doing. Although the United States is very dependent on many issues on these countries, including not only energy supply and oil supply, but also financial supplies. We've heard President Trump speaking about trillions of dollars that would come from these countries to be invested in the United States. So in my opinion, these countries have a great leverage if they use it, and they haven't used it yet. On the other hand, the other thing that worries me about a place like Indonesia, and that's why I personally went and visited Indonesia and met with many politicians there and many media people, you can see there is a tremendous support to Palestine among the public. Unconditional support to Palestine. Unconditional. And that's why it's very hard for the government to go against the wishes of the people. But we had to alert the public about pressures that were exercised on the Indonesian government to accept transfer of thousands of Palestinians to Indonesia. And luckily, that failed so far, thanks to the positions of many people in Indonesia. But I think that's what we should be alert to. How to prevent using any of these countries for the idea of ethnic cleansing and transfer that has failed so far because of the resilience of the Palestinian people and the rejection of Egypt of any plans of transferring Palestinians to Sinai.
So, Gideon Levy, my question to you is this: that how you see the Abraham Accord, the future of Abraham Accord under the current circumstances, when Netanyahu is continuous for the war aggression and the war crimes, then how much do you think that this dream of Donald Trump for the Abraham Accord can go forward?
it can go forward if Donald Trump will be alerted and will take care of Israel and of Israel's policy. Israel is totally dependent on the United States like never before, because Israel turned into a pariah state all over the world. So the American support is more vital than ever. And Donald Trump can push Israel everywhere. There are almost no limits to what he can dictate to Israel right now and to Netanyahu in person. But it doesn't seem that he is doing so. And the Abraham Accord, each country which is signed on the Abraham Accord is paying some lip service to the Palestinians, but I must say not much more. None of them considered any kind of diplomatic or other steps after the war in Gaza started. So I think the Abraham Accord will remain stable. Some countries might join them, and above all, obviously, Saudi Arabia. Again, if there will be the right diplomatic framework which will allow them to do so without really being seen as traitors toward the Palestinian people, but not much more than this. Because also the Saudis, their care about the Palestinians has some limits. I mean, they will not do everything for the Palestinians. They will be very happy to get some lip service from Israel about a future solution, and then they might join the Abraham Accord. The problem is that this government is incapable of even giving hollow promises for the future.
Yes, Dr. Suzie Sudarman. So my question to you is this: that how you see that the undercurrent in these troops deployment? How you see the role of the Turkey and Saudi Arabia on Indonesia? Do you think that there is any influence by Saudi Arabia and Turkey?
Of course, there's some solidarity among Muslim countries, but our friendship with Turkey only blooms as Indonesia buys their weapons, okay, like drones and airplanes. With Saudi Arabia, it's the core of the love of Indonesians, because they love to go to Hajj and they love to go to Umrah and everything else. So if they can do like tit for tat, meaning Prabowo is kind of transactional also. If Saudi is willing to invest in Indonesia, like United Emirates Arab, for instance, probably they will have influence. But if there's no money coming in from the Saudis, because Saudis are more interested in investing in China, then Prabowo is very unlikely to be listening to them, except when it comes to King Abdullah and the possibilities of getting money from the Israelis, because that's the reason why we get involved, because of budgetary constraint at the moment. But whether it's going to ever be realized, because I heard that the Israelis doesn't want Indonesia to be the part of the stabilization force in facing Hamas. So I don't know whether this will go through. I think I agree with Dr. Mustafa. Maybe the second part of this peace plan is not going to work out.
Thank you very much for this distinguished panel. I really appreciate your insight, because this was the topic that I think that need more discussion. And I really appreciate Dr. Mustafa Barghouti. I appreciate Gideon Levy for your great insight. And I am so kind of Dr. Suzie Sudarman from joining Indonesia. Thank you so much for all the panels. I really appreciate.
Thank you very much for having that.
Okay, so I